I'm Dr. Zack, Dr. Zack Alme, and this is Dr. Cody. We got Melody back here, and we've got Jennifer over here. They're the team of the Lifehouse here, and I just want to say thanks for taking some time to be here with us this morning. I want to give a quick intro to those of you that are from Orangetheory who haven't met us, and just so you'll have an understanding of why we've partnered with them, why they've partnered with us towards helping all of you achieve your goals. I've been practicing wellness-focused care for families, for everybody for the last 27 years here in Lafayette. And our focus is on really helping us to understand that we're in control of our health and equipping people so that they can live lifestyles so that they can express their health. With the principles that we use, it's also given me the opportunity to work with elite athletes and to help them achieve their performance goals. For 3 years, I was the team chiropractor for the Colorado Rapids. I had a chance to work with them in 2010 when they won the MLS Cup, which was pretty awesome. I'm currently, for the last 7 years, have been the team chiropractor for the United States Vision Impaired Judo team. And so I get to work with vision impaired athletes, travel all over the world, help them perform at the highest level. And so our talk today really ties into a lot of the stuff that I've picked up with them, because when you're a combat athlete, there's a weight criteria that's incredibly important. For instance, in April, I was in Turkey at the World Cup, and one of our gals there, she trains at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, and she could not cut weight. She could not cut. They were cutting. All the nutritionists there were working with her. She was down to virtually no calorie intake a day, all kinds of activity. She had gone 3 days without actually urinating because of the dehydration she was going through, and she couldn't lose weight. And we were now on the other side of the world. If she doesn't make weight, she runs the risk of not being able to stay at the OTC anymore and train. And so we were able to apply principles, get food into her body so that she has some strength, do some of the cold thermogenesis stuff that I'll be talking about in a few minutes too, to get her body's metabolism kicked into high gear. Long story short, she was able to make weight, she was able to compete. Now she still is with the USOC training down there. So anyway, we're going to be applying a lot of principles that work for athletes and for whatever level of competition you guys want to use it for. But the cool thing is that it's universal and it works for all of us. All right? Before we jump in and get started, I've got a presentation I'm going to go through, stuff that Alexa and I have talked about that she feels is going to be of interest to you. Before I jump into that, I want to see if there's any specific questions, areas of concern that you want me to go into, and I'll see if I can weave that into things as we go. So if anybody has anything that, some compelling questions, some nutrition advice, other stuff that they would like for us to cover, then we'll see if we can make sure we get that done.
I think what he said, like not being able to cut weight, is like a big thing.
Weight loss resistance.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, is the one.
Okay.
And do you have any, like, people who've had the gallbladders removed and things like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Me, so
Okay.
ever since 30 pounds, never been able to.
And here's what's interesting about that is that right now, I mean, does anybody have any confusion about nutrition?
Yeah.
Everybody.
You look at this, I pulled these things out here because there's not a lack of information. But what's interesting is that culturally we're taught we need to go to our doctors and ask them our nutritional questions. And the problem is in medical school, they don't teach nutrition. There's none. And in fact, it says that 1 out of 4 medical schools, they don't even meet federal guidelines in teaching basic nutrition. I'm a chiropractor by trade, and even in chiropractic school where we focus on wellness and lifestyle stuff, the nutrition stuff was really limited. But here's what is crazy. Every time I have somebody that I'm having a conversation with that's had a gallbladder removed, and I ask them what kind of nutritional recommendations their doctors have given them, nobody has ever said they told me to do anything. Go back to doing what you're doing. And when that happens, there's a 100% chance you're going to have heart disease as a result of the way your body can no longer metabolize fat effectively without that gallbladder. So we'll talk about that. We'll give you some good insights on how to get your body to work without, a critical part of it that it was born with. Yeah. Either one. Go ahead.
I'm interested in nutrition as a function of stress as well as age.
Okay. stuff's already worked in here, so this is great. Yeah.
I'm looking for some great ideas for like snacking
Oh.
and fast food in terms of like you work out and you have to be at work 20 minutes later. What can you eat
Okay.
that's gonna be helpful?
Very good. How to make fast food the best food, or healthy food the fast food. So, yeah, anything else? Okay, good. Well, we're going to answer those questions. We'll get to a lot of other questions too as we go. First thing I want to just jump into is just kind of outline the specifics that Alexa and I talked about. And first of all, that nutrition doesn't have to be confusing. You know, I think that when we take a look at all of this, this is done on purpose to keep us in a place of confusion so that we're constantly looking for the right answer. Nutrition is ridiculously simple. And so we're going to make it simple for everybody. As Alexa came in here, we were discussing just kind of our approach to health. She goes, you've got to explain this to people because they need to understand the ABCs to optimal health, the holistic perspective of us as human beings, and how our mind, our body, our spirit, our social, emotional state affects our nutrition, affects the way that our body responds to nutrition. So we're going to tie into that. That's really important for us when we're not seeing results and we're doing all the right stuff. We may not have all the pieces in place. So we'll talk about what that looks like. Nutrition basics, actually using food for fuel. That doesn't mean we can't enjoy it for pleasure, but it just means bringing it back in the right context with that. Simple strategies for success. This will be things like, hey, how can we get something quick and easy and that's still going to feed our bodies the way we want it to? All right? So we talked about this. There's not a lack of information. I've read most of these books, and some of them are good. What's the problem with a lot of these is they're filled with half-truths, partial truths, not complete truths. And so we start reading them, and these guys have great initials after their names. There's great science stuff that's presented, but some of it just isn't complete. So for instance, one of them up here, Eat to Live, Joel Fuhrman, MD. Great doctor, great information, functional medicine doctor, brilliant. He talks about how in plants, there's actually more protein per pound than there is in meat. True story. But guess what? Our bodies aren't designed to digest or break down the cell walls of plants. So a lot of those nutrients that are in there, if we're chewing our cud and we've got, we're redigesting food over and over again, it works great for that. But for us, it doesn't work. So the science is there, it's true, but the application doesn't necessarily make sense. So we want to take and again simplify things to what are we created to eat? How do we do things so that we can not stay confused? Here's one of the things that confuses us too, right? This is a challenge for us, right? How does this happen? How can one person get results and another person not? How many of you guys did the transformation challenge? Fantastic. You know, I was super impressed. I went to the little celebration dinner you guys had over here at the park, and I was just kind of sitting in the background listening. And really a high compliance of follow-through for, was it 60 days? 90 days? That's even better. That's really impressive to get into something and stick with it. So those are the kinds of commitments that are necessary for making change. But when we take a look at this, is why does this happen? How can you have the one person that's like me that for 40 years has tried to gain weight and has always wrestled and struggled with it, and then you've got the other person on the other side that for 40 years has tried to lose weight and can't do it. Weight loss resistance. Well, guess what? We're going to figure out how to do that. It's not just about calories in versus calories out. If it was, this would be really simple. But there's more to it. That's where we have to get into the whole ABCs on things. So when it comes to food, when it comes to what we put into our mouth, that was kind of cool. Quality is more important than quantity. Here's one of the cool things, is working with the athletes that we work with, working with the people that come into our office here that are concerned about weight, we never talk about counting calories. If you eat the right stuff, your body will respond the right way and you'll get the right changes. And it becomes something where you don't have to get consumed with, how many points have I used or how many calories have I consumed and, what's my percentage of carbs versus proteins versus fats. It's bringing things into proper balance and then just applying that and the right things are going to happen. But it comes back to its quality. And if we don't have the quality in there, we're messing ourselves up. We're setting ourselves up for disaster. Jumping around in here, hormones. This is probably the biggest part of it. right? We go back to the picture of those two ladies. Hormones. Hormones and genetics. Those two go hand in hand. But here's the good news, is that can be changed, right? We can choose the quality of the food that we eat. We can actually change our genetic expression. We did a workshop several weeks ago. It was on epigenetics. Anybody familiar with epigenetics? Epigenetics is a study that's in the 90s. They recognized that in Okinawa, they had the highest percentage of people that lived to be over 100 that were still active and functional. They were working and social, and they were playing, and they were living over 100 years of age. And then they looked at us. And we had 86% of our population with heart disease, cancer, chronic disease. They had less than 1%. And they started looking at the genetic makeup of them, and they found out that here in the United States, we've got genetic predisposition to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, all of these things. Genetically, we've got all these switches that are flipped that direction. The Okinawans, they looked at them, they had the same genetic predisposition, but their switches were all flipped in the other direction. So they weren't expressing that. And what we found is that through changing our lifestyle for 90 days, we can change the expression of over 400 genes in our genetic makeup. Great example of this. Anybody watch the movie Super Size Me? Yeah, so here's a guy, 30 days, right? Didn't even take the 90 days. 30 days, he does the McDonald's lifestyle plan. And the doctor said they'd never seen such profound change in hormones, genetics, disease processes, anywhere. That goes back to the quality versus quantity, right? If you're putting junk in, you can't expect not to have bad things take place. You put good quality in, you're going to get good things to take place. So we're going to be talking about, hey, how do we affect our hormones? That's the biggest issue. Weight loss resistance is a hormone issue. It's not a calorie issue. So how do we affect that? Same way we affect our genetics, okay? That comes back to the ABCs. The ABCs is really looking at ourselves from the understanding that we're made to be healthy. You guys get that? That our bodies are actually designed to survive on this planet. I always point out to people, no matter what kind of health crisis that they're in, if they come into my office, if they were to get a cut on their finger, would it heal? And I have yet, in 27 years, to have one person, regardless of whether they had cancer, whether they've got some kind of crazy unknown autoimmune disease, they've been to the Mayo Clinic and they can't find answers, every single one of them, they would heal. Which means that there's still a healing capacity inside their body. And so our goal then is to just get that to express where it needs to go. And it's important for us to look at ourselves holistically to make that happen. Because as we start removing anything that interferes with us expressing our health, we start expressing health. So it starts with alignment. We're going to get into each one of these beliefs. If you want to change your genetics and your hormones, there's nothing quicker than our thoughts to do that. And then community. You were talking about joining Orangetheory because of the community aspect of things here. That's the reason we do things the way that we do here, is that we get better success in a community than we do by ourselves. So let's break these things down a little bit further. Alignment, what does that mean? That means creating an agreement in what our lifestyle looks like and what our desired outcomes are. Okay? So if I want to be lean and fit, but I like to sit and watch CrossFit on TV instead of exercising, is that going to happen for me? If I like to munch on junk food while I'm watching CrossFit on TV and seeing these guys get fit, is that going to work for me? There's got to be an alignment. You've got to know what you want, and then you've got to put together pieces to make that happen. And it's a lifestyle thing. Because guess what? I can eat right and exercise for a week, and what's that going to do for me? A little bit, not a whole lot. But I'm not going to have a long-term benefit because it's got to be a lifestyle. So I've got to align my lifestyle with what I want for my outcome. So guess what? Our health then becomes whose responsibility? It's our own, which is empowering if we choose to let it be that way. But it's coming into alignment, making sure that those things are there. So that looks at a diet. And actually, I prefer nutrition plan versus diet. The reason for that is the first three letters of diet are die, and that's typically what I think of when I think of, I got to do a diet. But if we have a nutrition plan, that's the way we live. That's a lifestyle. And the fun thing about this is we put together the right nutritional choices, we get to enjoy food, we get to eat without counting calories, and we get to reap the benefits of what that does for our body. How about exercise? Did everybody exercise this morning that came over from Orangetheory? That's awesome. That's awesome. I was at Gold's Gym up in Longmont this morning to get my workout in too. And it's an important part of our lifestyle, right? We can't get the benefits if we don't put in the time. So it's just making that work for us. And the right kind of exercise makes all the difference. How about this? This is probably one of the biggest issues that we run into. It's toxicity. This goes back to the quality versus quantity. We've got a Happy Meal over there from what, 2009? Is that where that thing came back from? And if you look at it, it's still there. It's still intact. I'll grab it for you guys can see. It's pretty cool. I think a couple years ago, Janet's kids ate one of the French fries. So you take a look at this, and this is this quality?
No.
No. Yeah, so here's the deal: is if it was real food, would it even be alive? Would it be around now? It would be totally decomposed. So guess what? If we eat this, and it goes into our body, and we wonder why we can't lose weight, why is that?
Because it stays there.
Because it never goes away. It stays in there. You guys realize that toxins are stored in fat cells. And so we can cut calories, we can exercise, we can make it to where we try to get rid of all of the extra caloric intake, but if we still are toxic, it's going to be stored in those fat cells. And it'll sit there. And we'll kind of go, how come I can't lose this? Well, if we start detoxifying the body, guess what happens? It starts doing what it's supposed to do. We're supposed to run clean. And so as we start doing the right things, it makes a big difference. And here's the cool thing with this, is we start looking at these things. This is lifestyle, right? This is the stuff that if we do day in, day out, this is actually going to change our genetic expression. So guess what? Dr. Cody and myself, we recently did a genetic test. And this genetic testing found that we're both predisposed to obesity. We're not expressing that. But what's interesting is that I was also predisposed to all kinds of autoimmune diseases, migraine headaches, allergies, and that kind of stuff, which is the first 10 years of my life. That's what I experienced. But since then, I haven't. Because these kinds of changes have made it to where I flipped those switches in the other direction. And so I am no longer a victim of my genetics. The genetics have actually conformed to my lifestyle, which is pretty cool, right? So guess what? If you guys have, your parents are overweight, and you're overweight, and your sister's overweight, and everybody in your family's overweight, it doesn't have to stay that way. But it takes consistent work to make that change take place, okay? So the alignment. There's also alignment of the spine, and this is where bells and whistles went off in Alexa's head, and we started talking about this component of it, because we tend to forget about our nerve system. Do you guys realize that your nerve system does everything for you? So your brain processes every thought you have, every emotion that you have. It orchestrates your hormone balance. It actually orchestrates your body's immune system response. It tells your heart when to beat, your lungs how to breathe. It actually orchestrates how your muscles work, coordination, balance, function of all of that stuff. And yet we really don't pay much attention to our nerve system. But what's interesting about this is that if you take a look at this, all these different parts of the body, the one thing that they have in common is they plug into the nerve system. And as long as the nerve system is functioning properly, so can these guys. But what's interesting is that if the nerve system has some kind of a compromise, it can actually affect the organ system. So you guys realize that? Here's what's interesting about this. I don't say this because I'm a chiropractor. I'm actually a chiropractor because of the nerve system component of things. Grace textbook of anatomy, this guy right here, every medical doctor carries this around like this as they're going through school. And it says in here that every cell, every tissue, every organ is under direct control of your nerve system. Okay? So everything that's happening, if you think about all of the different activities that are going on a cellular level inside you right now, this is what's making that happen. It's pretty important. World Book Encyclopedia says that all body systems are immobilized without the nerve system. You guys familiar with Christopher Reeve? Right? Falls off a horse, breaks this top bone in his neck, and it doesn't cut or sever his spinal cord. It actually shifts over about 1 centimeter and puts pressure right on his brainstem up here. And what happens to him? He's immobilized. And it's interesting because we know he's paralyzed from the neck down, but guess what? They had to put a pacemaker in because his heart was immobilized. It couldn't function anymore. They had to hook him up to a ventilator, put in a feeding tube, and he dies from a common cold. Most quadriplegics, it's their immune system that actually fails, and they die from immune system failure. So when we take a look at this, this becomes a really important part of it. So what does the alignment mean? Well, the alignment is this. The nerve system is the only system in your body that has body armor on it, right? So we have 22 bones up here that wrap around our brain and protect it, 24 vertebrae that actually wrap around the brain stem, wrap around the spinal cord, and create little bony openings for the nerves to come out of. And as long as the alignment is good, those nerves are protected, everything works right. It's perfect, it's brilliant. Nice thing about having the 24 vertebrae too is guess what? Now we can move and bend and twist, and we can do burpees and box jumps and all that kind of fun stuff. We can be active and dynamic, which is what we're created to do. You know, the reason that we have all these joints and muscles in our body is because we're made to move. And as long as we have alignment, things work the way they're supposed to. It's like your car. If it's in alignment, man, it just cruises. But if there's misalignment, we got problems. Okay? Misalignment, from the medical perspective, that's actually called vertebral subluxation. That basically means the vertebra shifts out of its normal position, and now instead of protecting the nerves that come out between these openings, it can actually start choking or compressing those nerves. Studies done here at the University of Colorado, they found that just the weight of a dime on one of these nerves, and we can lose up to 60% of that nerve communication. So this is where it comes down to, if we're weight loss resistance, if we got problems with digestion, if we got any kind of a chronic issue that's going on, imagine that you come in and you want some advice on nutrition. You've got celiac or something, some kind of a metabolic disorder. And you've got a dime sitting on the nerve that goes to your stomach. And we go through and we kind of say, okay, based on your symptoms, here's some nutrients, here's a nutrition plan, here's what you need. What kind of results are you going to get? You're probably not going to get what you need if your stomach is operating at 40% of capacity. So in order for us to have success in getting things to function and heal the way that they should, first thing we need to do is make sure that communication is restored. And that's where alignment becomes such a critical piece of it. I'll give you an example of this. This is Mary. Mary's, just not her real name, but in 2010. And when we look at somebody's x-rays of their neck from the side, there should be a nice curve in here, right? Everybody that comes in here knows this is the arc of life, right? And that between each of these vertebrae, we should see a nice dark space, which is where the disc is, that tells us that joint is healthy. We come down in here and that's not there anymore. That tells us that Mary has arthritis. She's genetically predisposed to obesity. Parents are heavy, her sister's obese, she's got hypothyroid, she's over 200 pounds, can't lose weight, she's lethargic, she has the arthritis in her neck, right in here. And because the neck has given her some pain, she's gone to your regular chiropractor and has gotten some adjustments, and that's kind of helped with the pain. But here's where this becomes a problem. In chiropractic school, guess what we're taught? We're taught to find where your neck hurts, do some therapies, adjust your neck, and make it feel better. We're never taught to fix the alignment so that structurally it becomes functional again. And I found this out early on when I saw people that had been through chiropractic care for a long time, and they had decades of damage going on in their spine. So for the past 20 plus years, that's what my focus has been on. How do we create a structural correction problem so we actually fix alignment? And that's why you'll see all this stuff that we have here with the crazy devices that are around. Our whole focus from a chiropractic perspective is to restore proper alignment. And as that happens, some really cool stuff happens, because as long as that alignment's out, and we've got the nerves in this area that go to things like the thyroid gland, what kind of success does she expect to have with her thyroid if we give her some thyroid supplements and we change her diet and everything? Nothing's going to happen until we get that correct. Does that make sense? Yeah. So she's been coming in for a long time. We recently took some x-rays of her again. And here's what's fun is, can you guys see some dark spaces in here? That arthritis is going away. How many of you have ever been taught that arthritis is reversible? Or heart disease is reversible? Your body is made to heal. So she's got a curve that's coming back into her neck. Epigenetic changes. Her hormones are back into balance. She was on Synthroid and she was on some other hormones, and now she's off all of those. Her body's back into balance. She's been maintaining her weight in the mid-30s, 130s for the past 2 years. She doesn't count calories. She eats in a really fun way. She's vibrant, energetic. Arthritis is almost completely gone, and she's been applying the ABCs. It really is that simple. These things work, right? This is the stuff that where if we all eat the same food, we'll get different outcomes. But if we all get things back into alignment where they're functioning properly and we all eat the right food, we're all going to get the good outcomes. Does that make sense? So this becomes a really critical piece of the puzzle. Here's actually a picture of somebody getting adjusted with a structural corrective procedure. So that red line you saw that kind of went like this, and you can see this neck in this lower part actually buckles this way. That should curve like a C. So the adjustment tool that we use is called an arthrostim. And the nice thing about it is that, and this is another thing where Alexa came in and she had been kind of traumatized by a chiropractor. She was afraid to death of the cracking, popping stuff in her neck. Somebody had done that to her and it hurt her and it scared her. I think Julie said the same thing. And so this doesn't have the popping, the cracking. It actually feels good. People go, oh, it feels good when you do that. So you can relax into it and your body's receptive to the change. But it also has a profound effect, and we're looking at 30 seconds here, profound effect with a complete change in alignment. Pretty cool, huh? So as we get that to happen and we start reprogramming that into the body so that the muscle memory and the neurological memory starts to correspond to that, then we start to see the body work the way it's supposed to. So when we give it the right food and we do the right exercise, we get the right outcomes. So let's shift to beliefs. How important are our beliefs or our thoughts? Yeah, so what are some of the thoughts that we have? I always this. I never that, right? We have so many people coming in and say, the doctor diagnosed me with this, and so this is where I'm stuck. I'm diabetic. And so we have these beliefs that we're limited. In fact, really kind of the way that we're brought up and conditioned culturally is that if we don't get the right diagnosis and the right medical intervention, we're destined to die. And it starts out with little babies, right? If we don't get the right vaccine, if we don't get the right goop in their eyes, if we don't get the right shot in their heel, if we've made normal life a medical condition. And the truth be known is that we've survived a long time without medical intervention. So what is a belief? A belief is that my body is self-healing, self-adapting, self-regulating. It's created not just to survive, but to thrive. Right? That's an empowering belief. It makes a big difference on what goes on. Because what we believe determines our actions, which then determines our outcome. Right? So if you guys believe that going to Orangetheory Fitness and doing the high-intensity interval training and getting that epoch result that you get afterwards is going to affect your metabolism and you're going to get stronger and more lean and you get more energy, more vitality, it's going to help to get your hormones back into balance so that you actually become anti-aging and so forth, it makes a difference, right? You'll show up. If you're going there just because you want to sweat, you're going to lose energy after a while because that's not going to be a big enough motivation. Now, Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Because our thoughts are powerful. We take it to the next level. This is one of my favorite authors, Dr. Caroline Leaf. She says the thought that you're thinking right now is affecting the 75 to 100 trillion cells in your brain and your body at quantum speeds. So guess what that means? The thought that you're thinking right now is affecting your hormones. It's affecting your genetic expression. It's affecting, on a cellular level, what's going on inside you. To give you an example of this, anybody ever been you're driving in your car, and all of a sudden there's like somebody just darts right out in front of you. You hit the brakes as hard as you can, you're just clutching the steering wheel, and you miss them by like 6 inches. Right? No accident. I mean, there was no trauma, but what's your body doing? Your hair's standing on you, you're holding your breath, you're clenching your teeth. Every cell in your body feels different, right? There's a chemical effect because of that thought, that fear, that panic that took place that affected every cell in your body. Here's the problem we run into, is that this day and age, the lifestyle that we live, is it calm, cool, collected, peaceful, relaxed, or is it busy, busy, busy? Guess what this does to our hormones? Guess what this does to our genetics? So we can eat right, we can exercise, but if we're living right here, guess what happens? Weight loss resistance, chronic disease, all kinds of issues that will show up for that. So we talked about diet, exercise, detoxifying, affecting our genetics. Do you know what affects our genetics quicker than anything? It's our thoughts. Great book. If anybody wants more research on this, this is part of what we did in our workshop several weeks ago. Dirty Genes. This says whether you're predisposed or not genetically, if you do genetic tests and it says you got the MTHFR or any of these other SNPs that are going on, it doesn't matter. Your lifestyle, you can change that. And the quickest thing that changes it happens up in here. So with that is recognize that our thoughts are important. That also means that our habits of our thoughts are important. Okay? So we got to work on our thoughts. So then we talked about alignment. We talked about beliefs. How about community? How important is community? I mean, you guys know this, right, from Orangetheory. Why are you there? Why are you doing it as a group? Does anybody work out in their basement by themselves at home as hard as you work out when you're across the street at Orangetheory?
The environment.
The environment,
Yeah.
the support,
Right.
The accountability, all of the stuff
Yeah.
that goes with that. The excitement. You know, how fun is it when you're doing something really well that somebody else is struggling with and you get to encourage them? And then to be the recipient of that encouragement. And to, at the end of the class, just look at each other and kind of go, high five, way to go, right? There is enormous benefit that comes with community. There was a large study that was done on weight loss, people that had undergone dietary changes. And they found that if you actually took and did a diet with a partner or a group, you lost on average twice as much as the person who tried to do it individually. So we call this, anybody watching the Tour de France right now? We call this the power of the peloton, right? Because there's power in a group. And so if we try to make lifestyle changes by ourselves, how well do we do? Right? We try to get back into running by ourselves. We start having struggles. We get disappointed. We get discouraged. We don't see the outcome we want, and we bail. But if we have a support group, it makes a big difference. So what we found is with these ABCs, that helps to put us in a position where we can see victory take place. And so you guys are already doing a lot of this because you've got the culture that's helping to nourish this. But let's jump in now and apply this to nutrition. Nutrition made simple, okay? This is really it. There's real food and there's fake food. If you want to be more alive than dead, eat food that's more alive than dead. It really is that simple. But you need to make sure that you've got everything else working properly, right? Because if you are eating this, but your hormones are wrecked, you're not going to reap the benefits of that the way that you want to. Your body is going to have the fuel it needs to stay healthy and hopefully prevent some disease, but you're not going to get the desired outcomes that you want. If you live off this, again, kind of going back to that supersize me guy, right? That guy, when he started, he was basically my stature, right? 6'2", 185 pounds. And after 30 days, he put on like 30 pounds. And guys like us don't put on 30 pounds unless we're doing this and wrecking our hormones. So we've got to take and recognize that the choices that we make today make a big difference, right? Guess what? If you ate one of these things and you died right away, people wouldn't continue to do that, right? But the problem is we can eat one of those and not really notice anything. We can do it again tomorrow, right? I come over here to work all the time and I have to get stuck behind people that are trying to get into Wendy's because there's a line that's backed up out into the street, right? Do those people think they're getting a healthy meal? I don't think so. But because they don't feel the damages of it right away, they don't recognize that it's a problem for them. Oh, I've done this my whole life, it's okay. But there's this concept called bioaccumulation, which is gradually things build up. And it's kind of like having a little bowl with a goldfish in it. And you can take an eyedropper of something that's toxic and squeeze it in there and nothing's going to happen. Another drop, nothing happens. Another drop, nothing happens. Drop, 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 drop. And all of a sudden, that fish is going to kind of start squirming, boom, and it goes belly up. Which of those caused the problem? Every single one of them, right? So when it comes to why don't we see the changes we want, it comes to our consistency is critical, especially if we're at a place where our hormones or our genetics are already switched in the wrong direction, okay? So here's some real basic things. Eat real organic food, right? Simple. Does anybody have a problem with that? A lot of people are going to go, oh, it's expensive. Look, you know what? When you buy real food, you actually eat less because there's nutrition in it, and your body goes, hey, I'm full, I don't need to eat as much. And it actually is, it may cost a little bit more at the supermarket, but it costs a whole lot less at the emergency room or in chronic care or getting cancer treatment. Yeah, it's a priority. Eat appropriate amounts of quality fats and proteins. Fats. Fats have been vilified for a long, long time. Fortunately, we're seeing a shift in that. You guys realize that the 75 to 100 trillion cells that you have in your body, the membranes around every single one of those cells is 2 layers of fat. And if you've got the right fats in your body, those membranes are healthy, which means that cell is healthy. And if your cells are healthy, guess what that means about you? You're healthy. If we don't have enough fats because we've been sold this low-fat diet concept, or if we have the wrong fats because we've been told saturated fat's bad, animal fat's bad, you got to do canola oil instead and margarine, now we've got plastic cell membranes that don't work, and we've got unhealthy cells. Right? When we got into the low-fat kick, we went from 1 in 11 Americans having heart disease to 1 in 2. We went from being relatively lean to being the most overweight people on the planet. Low fat is not the answer. In fact, the biggest part of our diet should be fat, healthy fats. Fats are required for our body to metabolize fat. So with that, who likes butter? Right? Organic, grass-fed butter. Who likes ghee? Who likes avocados? Who likes coconut oil? Who likes, it's great stuff. We get to actually enjoy wonderful food, and our body is going to reap the benefits of it. Right? It's getting the appropriate amounts of that, and with the proteins. Make sure that you're getting all the nutrients that your body needs, ideally from your food. Right? Does anybody take supplements? Okay. I'm not against supplements if they're the right kind of supplements. One of the biggest challenges that I see is that with B vitamins, which is one of the most important nutrients that we need for our body's metabolism to work properly, for us to actually take care of over 200 cellular functions for our nerve system to work, is that the B vitamins that are in most supplements actually toxify your body, actually interfere with your body's expression of things. So if you go home and you look at your multivitamin, it actually, you go through it and you look at B9, which is also called folate, and it says folic acid on your supplement, throw that thing in the garbage. That is causing more damage than good. And so it's a simple thing that if we're going to be doing supplementation, the quality is important. And so I'm not against it. I think that we need to recognize that it's not an excuse for us to eat sloppy. We need to get most of our nutrients from our food, and then we need to fill in the gaps with supplementation.
What do you think about Juice Plus? Because it advertises that you're getting it from the food.
Yeah.
You're just distilling it.
Yeah, so I think that when you start looking at those, I haven't seen any problems with the Juice Plus. It's been a long time since I've looked at the label, but I would look at the folic acid versus folate. I'm almost certain that you're going to find that it's got a methyl B9, which is going to be the folate, which is good.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah. Yep. Avoid pasteurized dairy. We have any problems with dairy? Does anybody have a concern or questions about dairy? So here's the deal: is that milk, dairy is a superfood, right? Super high in fat, super high in protein. It'll take a little calf and turn it into a big cow in a short period of time, right? There's lots of nutrients in there. The problem is that if it's pasteurized, if you take a calf that hasn't been weaned and you take the milk from its mother and you pasteurize it and give it to that calf will die. Pasteurization destroys the nature of that milk, and it makes it toxic to us, which is why we have casein problems, we have lactose intolerance, we have all these issues with dairy, all these dairy allergies because of what we do to it. Now, dairy isn't something that should be our staple unless we want to get big like a cow, right? But dairy in itself isn't bad until we start denaturing it. Okay, so with that, if you can get raw, if you can do that as far as cheeses and yogurts, that kind of stuff, there's not a problem with it. But the pasteurization is a problem. Gluten itself isn't a problem. It's actually, if we have problems with gluten, it's actually a gut issue. That can be healed, but because of the products that have gluten in them, they're going to be highly inflammatory to us. So we want to take and avoid those. Excess carbs and refined sugars. if we want to change our hormones, we've got to address the sugars. If we've got weight loss resistance, we've got hormone imbalance. Key hormones that are going to be involved in that are going to be insulin resistance, leptin resistance, and ghrelin. The only way to change the body's sensitivity to those things is to completely eliminate the sugars.
I got a question on that.
Okay?
I'm the first to admit I'm addicted to sugar.
Yeah?
I can't do that on my own.
No.
I've tried.
So here's the deal with that. Guess what? Sugar is more addictive than cocaine.
There you go.
Right? Who's not a sugar junkie? Right? Hi, I'm Dr. Zach, and I'm addicted to sugar, right? We're junkies. And whether it's refined sugar like the sweets or whether it's the breads, right? We're still addicted to it. I was doing a nutrition workshop for homeless people down in Denver a few years ago, and we talked about getting the most nutrition for your dollar instead of the most calories for your dollar. And we were talking about the whole sugar issue, and I said, sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And these guys on the street were going, yeah, man, totally. And I'm thinking, they probably know what a cocaine addiction is, right? I don't know what that is, but I know what being a sugar junkie is. And so it's having strategies for that. And really, cold turkey is the best way to do it. But that's where having a support group makes it important. In January, my wife and I did a 5-day water fast. We had 2,000 people we did it with. And it was super easy because we had a group that was doing it. So it makes a big difference on having somebody to support you through that. It's rough for a couple days and then it gets easy. Okay? Yeah, sugars are the devil. Yeah.
What was the benefit of a water fast?
Tons of benefits. At about day 3, your stem cell production can increase by up to 400%. So if you have any kind of injuries, any kind of chronic issue, any kind of area where you want to see increased healing manifest, stem cell production goes through the roof. Phenomenal. Actually, about 3 days in, your body's gut totally flips. So if you got any kind of imbalance in your intestinal flora, if you got any kind of immune system compromise, it can turn that around. What's that?
What is that?
The
Water
5-day
fast.
water fast.
Oh, water.
Studies coming out of USC in Southern California, they actually found that even people whose immune systems have been severely damaged by chemotherapy, that doing a water fast can help to turn that back around and get the immune system working again. So lots and lots of great benefits. What happens is your body takes all the energy that's going into digestion, puts it into healing. And so you get some really, really cool benefits out of it. We had one other gentleman that comes in here who, pre-diabetic for like 30 years. The doctors just kept beating him over the head trying to get him on metformin and insulin. His blood sugar was running 300 to 400 every morning. Ideally, you want it around 100, right? He was 300 to 400. We're going to throw you in the hospital if we see it that high kind of number. And he did a 5-day water fast. We monitored his ketones. We monitored his glucose through that whole time. And at the end of it, his blood sugar was running about 140. He had a death in the family, had to go out of town, and kind of got stuck into the whole stress of what came with that. Blood sugar goes up to about 180. He does another fast a month later. He's been holding 130s consistently every day since then. So it can reset your hormones in a really powerful way. Yeah, and it's easy when you do it with a group. Kind of sucks to do it by yourself.
The Science of Fasting is on Netflix. And it's really
Yeah, that's a great
informative.
little documentary. Yeah,
So you can check that out for your person.
if you're interested. And we're actually going to be doing a fasting challenge here in the next few weeks. So if you guys have your email, we've got that over here. We'll let you know when that is, and we can kind of come together as a group and make that happen and give you some strategies for success. Avoid foods that are high in antibiotics, hormones, pesticides, herbicides, preservatives, artificial ingredients.
That's the whole story.
This is the standard American diet right here, right?
It's a grocery.
This is why. So here's a great question for you, especially when we got kind of an athletic group in here. Beef, red meat, good or bad?
Sometimes it's okay.
Moderation.
Okay. Sometimes
Once a month.
once a month. So basically, you're talking about just in
I
quantity.
feel like our bodies aren't meant to eat like that much red meat.
Okay. So you
I
mean
could
like
be
daily
wrong.
red meat? What's that? Your body is.
She's like her body is.
So
What about
here's
blood
an important
types,
thing to
yeah,
get.
blood type is.
Blood type can make a difference too. They eat right for your blood type stuff. There's some serious flaws in that science. But anyway, there are some good benefits to that too. There are some good things that come out of that, but there's some serious flawed science in that too. But have you guys ever heard this? You are what you
Eat.
Here's actually a better way to think about that. You are what you eat eats. Okay? So think about a cow.
They eat grass.
That's what they're made to eat. But if you go up to
they're not
Greeley
eating
and you
it.
drive by the feedlots, what are the cows eating up there?
Grain.
They're standing in their own waste. They're eating grains, which they're not designed to eat. They're being injected with God knows what. And so guess what we're eating? God knows what, right? I mean, we're getting antibiotics. You know, the most of us, we've been through courses of antibiotics because of, infections and stuff like that. Most of us, the majority of the antibiotics we get are from the meats we eat, because they give that to a routine. That's creating all kinds of serious bacterial or antibiotic-resistant bacteria out there. Lots of disease issues going on. Hormones. We had a doctor that worked for me for several years, and his 8-year-old daughter started developing breasts. He took her off dairy, and she became a little girl again because of the hormones that were in that, the bovine growth hormone that's in that milk. And then we look at our, why do we have to go organic? It's because all the stuff that we spray on our crops. It's horrible. So we have to take and recognize that we can't put all that stuff into our body and not expect it to affect us in a negative way. Here's the important part of this. Slow down when you're eating. I tell people to remember this. Chew your smoothies and drink your food. Does that make sense? What does that mean? What does that even mean, to chew your smoothie? Well, you guys realize that when you masticate, when you do this, that there's actually, it stimulates enzyme activity inside your mouth. You actually get saliva that's developed, and it starts the digestive process in your mouth. If we drink a smoothie, we miss that because we're not getting that saliva activated. So we're going to get, our digestion is going to be impaired. Other part of the eating process, the chewing process, is it slows things down. When we start talking about hormones, there's a hormone called ghrelin that actually tells your body, it talks to your hypothalamus up here and tells you when you're full. The problem is it takes about 20 minutes for that hormone to be activated. How fast do most of us eat? We don't make a meal last 20 minutes, do we? Heck no. So guess what? We start feeling it here before we start feeling it here. So if we slow down, chew, actually have conversations, put our phones down, engage with each other, now we're changing our state, right? There's going to be a hormone change, not just the ghrelin hormone, but cortisol levels. We digest better when our cortisol levels drop. When we create a place of peace, when we create a place of community. So this has a huge effect on our nutritional outcome. When we're raising our food, we're actually raising cortisol, creating hormone imbalances, and we're putting fat on around our belly that we're not going to get rid of, even if we do 1 billion crunches. The Okinawans, this is one of the rules that they found. They stopped eating when they were about 80% full. That's why they didn't have obesity. Yeah. We get conditioned. Is anybody, were you conditioned to think that if you didn't clear your plate that somebody in China was going to starve to death?
That's like our parents.
Yeah, exactly. So guess what? That's not true. That's a nutritional myth that we're here to debunk. So stop eating before you're full. So if you're stuck, right, weight loss resistance, who's battled with this? You try exercising harder, you try cutting calories, and you just don't lose the weight. Guess what? It's hormones. Bottom line, it's hormones. And with all of the hormone classes, with the functional medicine classes that Dr. Cody and myself have been through about how do we take and do all the labs so that we can see your hormones and know what to do and how to intervene and how to treat, one common thing comes through. Hormones are a lifestyle issue. Your body's hormones do what they need to do under the circumstances that they're in. Okay? So if you're being chased by a bear, guess what your hormones do? They go crazy. And they have to. That's a good thing. But if we live our whole life as if we're being chased by a bear, we're creating a hormone imbalance for survival purposes that actually has some detrimental effects on us. Does that make sense? So we can't live in that state and not expect it to create some imbalances. And the problem is how do we then want to deal with the imbalances? Well, we go get hormone replacement therapy, we do bioidenticals, we do this and that, ashwagandha. We do all of these different things to try to fix our hormones when our hormones are a product of our lifestyle. And so the bottom line is we have to take and come back to controlling our state, recognize it. You know what? If I've got 300 things to do on my list today, there's no bear chasing me. I'm going to get those done better here than I am here. Does that make sense? And so we get in the habit of this when this is a place that we can come back to, right? You guys exercise because of some of the benefits you should get as far as lowering cortisol and affecting your stress hormones, right? Have you guys seen the research that shows that when we exercise, our cortisol levels actually climb? When we're doing the low intensity, long duration exercise, we're out jogging, we're getting on the treadmill, we're on the stationary bike, we're doing this. This is what our cortisol levels do. Wait a minute, we're trying to lower our stress hormone and we're actually raising it. You know what actually causes it to do this? High intensity interval training. Yep, so you guys are doing the right thing over there. That's the kind of exercise that takes your cortisol and it kind of does this thing with each one of those interval sets that you're doing. So you're affecting your hormones. You know, here it is. I warned you about the hormones and all that meat and dairy you eat. Yeah, dairy can be a problem, right? Just like my buddy's daughter started to develop some breasts. But here's really the hormone issues that we run into. We get insulin resistance, leptin resistance, high cortisol levels, hypothyroid, decreased human growth hormone, and low T. Low T is, what's interesting is that we live in this place because of the lifestyle we live, and every single one of these now is a money-making device in the medical community, right? These aren't diseases. These are lifestyle problems. These are actually adaptations to the lifestyle that we have. They're doing the right thing under the circumstances. So to fix these, we got to change the circumstances. So how do we do that? Here's a list if you guys wanted to take notes on how to actually hack your hormones. Yeah, it comes back to this. We got to cut out the carbs. I wish there was a way that I could say, yeah, you could do this, but you got to cut them out.
When you say cut out carbs, you mean like rice, bread, pasta?
Yeah, so basically grains and any of the refined sugars, most fruits even.
Really?
Yeah, and here's the deal: is fruit bad? Actually, are grains bad? We've made grains bad, but you know, in nature and their natural source, they're not bad. But here's what's happened: is that if you imagine that the average American consumes 53 teaspoons of sugar a day, we're not designed to do that. So there's been this epigenetic change to where our body produces more and more and more insulin because of all the sugar we're taking in, and our cells go like this. You can't hear it. We become insulin resistant. And so in order for us to actually get it to where the cells do this, we have to just get that stuff out of there. So even if it's a healthy sugar, you know, even if it's something that even like some of the vegetables that have a higher glycemic index, like carrots and these types of things, beets, we have to cut those out because they're going to continue to raise up that insulin, and our cells are going to still be bombarded with it. In order to get the cells to where they can start listening again, we have to get rid of that insulin response.
But definitely bread, pasta, rice,
Yep.
everything like that.
Yep, anything that's going to cause insulin to increase. Guess what else causes insulin to increase? Cortisol. As soon as our cortisol goes up, boom, insulin goes right up with it. So we can cut out all the carbs, and if we're stressing about cutting out all the carbs, we're kind of spinning our wheels, right? So we have to kind of still come back to that place of here. This is the biggest part of it, is the mindset. But cutting out the carbs is critical. It doesn't mean forever. It means until we can start hearing the insulin again. Reset. It's kind of a pendulum thing, right? Is if this is normal and we should be able to just eat natural, healthy, what I call food by God, it's just that stuff that in nature, the way that it exists in its natural state, that's what our body's made to eat for food. This is where we should be. But because we've messed ourselves up and are way over here out of balance with bad fats and too many carbs, we've got to come over to here so we can get back to here. Does that make sense? So it's not to villainize all carbs. We just have to get rid of them so that we can reset. And that can be anywhere from 4 weeks to 4 months. Here's what's interesting. We had a gal a couple years ago, and she was cutting out all the carbs, and it was brutal for her because her body had only known how to use sugar for energy. And so you start cutting that out, and it's like you start crashing. And she had no energy, and she was calling me, you know, when is this going to get better? When is this going to begin? And I just kept talking her off the ledge, saying, here, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. She calls me like 6 weeks into it. She's on vacation, she's someplace, she goes, the switch just flipped. My energy's great, I feel good, her mood had changed, everything happened. But it took kind of suffering for a while to make that, to get it to that point. And then the challenge is like, oh, now I'm there. Sometimes we sabotage ourselves and go back to where we were before. It's creating a lifestyle that continues to support that. Detoxification is huge, right? If we're toxic and that's stored in our fat cells, our hypothalamus can't hear leptin, which is our fat-burning hormone. We get stuck into this place where we can't burn fat, and we're not going to lose the weight we want to. A detox is the only way to make that happen outside of, are you guys familiar with like the HCG diet? Mm-hmm. So here's what happens, is you got this hypothalamus up here. It's actually right in the middle of your brain, and it creates hormones. You get leptin, which is a hormone that's made by fat cells. If you want to just kind of think about how cool the body is, fat cells produce this hormone called leptin. It goes up to talk to the hypothalamus. So when we have a lot of fat, it says, hey, we need to burn fat for fuel. That needs to be our energy right now. Fat's actually the most efficient fuel our body has. So this actually triggers thyroid stimulating hormone, comes down to the thyroid and says, hey, let's go into this fat burning mode. And it starts burning fat because we got a lot of it. And so when we got leptin talking to the brain, that's what happens. But toxins accumulate where? Fat. Your brain is about 80% fat by weight. So we get toxins up in here. So this hypothalamus gets congested, and all these little binding sites where the leptin's supposed to go now has poison stuff in it. And it can't get in there, it can't talk. So we got all this leptin that's around here because we got all this fat, and it's just sending all this leptin up here, but our hypothalamus can't hear it. And so we just get this vicious cycle that goes on, and we can't burn fat, we get fatter. So we can change our diet, we can do all kinds of stuff, but if we don't detoxify, we're not going to get that leptin sensitivity back. Does that make sense? This can be a huge breakthrough for people who've tried a lot of stuff, who are actually eating clean and exercising. Once they get those poisons out and the body goes, now we can get going again, it'll kick things into gear.
What is the, what?
There's lots of different methods for detox. We actually have a program, it's a 6-day detox that goes after your gut, your liver, and your intestines. So that it actually clears everything out so that then we can start dumping things out. And then we have a binding agent called cytodetox that will pull the toxins out of the brain and other tissues to clear those out of the body. But we have to have some kind of an agent that's going to attract those things and actually flush them out of the body. Okay? So there's lots of different ways to do it. We have one that's actually super user-friendly, and we can give you information about that. Increase healthy fats. Again, this is one of those things where we struggle with because fat's bad, right? No, fat's good. We need fats. You guys are already doing the EPOC training, the high-intensity interval stuff. That's really, really good. Intermittent fasting. We talked about a 5-day fast or a 3-day fast to change things. Anybody familiar with intermittent fasting? This is a great thing, too, because what this does is it basically extends the amount of time between dinner and breakfast. The longer you go, the more your body has to draw on fat reserves for energy instead of sugar that you just have consumed. So it actually takes, and it fat acclimates your body. It makes your body to where it knows how to burn fat for energy, which is its most effective form of energy. Does anybody have energy that does this?
Yes.
Okay, that means that you're not burning fat effectively. Okay, you're doing good, and then you kind of start crashing. I need sugar. Goes back up. I start crashing. I need sugar. And so when we don't have the carbs, our energy crashes. When we got fat, and we're burning fat, this is what happens to us. Okay, the intermittent fasting can make a big difference in this. Improve vagal tone. Is anybody ever familiar with vagal tone? This is one of the most powerful things that's out there. We're going to be doing a workshop on this in the next probably 5 or 6 weeks. And this has to do with what's called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a nerve that comes right out of your brainstem up in here, and it's a parasympathetic nerve. So it's involved in digestion, reproduction, healing, and repair. You guys are familiar with the sympathetic nerve system, fight or flight, I'm running from a bear type stuff. The sympathetic system is what keeps our body going. It keeps all of our body activities going, all of our organ system functions going, and it's important. The parasympathetic is what actually shuts those down so that they can repair. It's kind of like the yin and the yang, right? We need this to be going on. We get stuck in this place of fight or flight, and we're always up in here. Our hormones get out of balance. Our vagal tone shuts down. We don't heal. We don't sleep. We don't repair. Our reproductive system is compromised. All of these things go on. And so we've got to bring some balance back into there. The vagal tone is actually affected by posture. If I have forward head posture, it's actually going to put pressure right on that brain stem back in here and affect that vagus nerve and shut it down. If that stays that way for a long period of time, chronic disease happens. They did a study out of Denmark where they took and they implanted a pacemaker in people with rheumatoid arthritis. And instead of having the pacemaker go to the nerve that affects the heart, they sent it up to the vagus nerve. And these people went into remission because their vagal tone was being activated. They were taking pressure off that nerve and getting it to work so their body could heal and repair. Posture will make a difference on this. Spinal alignment makes a big difference. Cold thermogenesis actually affects your vagal tone. Anybody familiar with that? What that is? Cold showers? Anybody do cold showers? Yeah? Tried?
I've tried.
Okay. This will actually affect your hormones. This will help cortisol levels drop. This will reset a big part of what goes on with leptin and insulin by doing cold thermogenesis. Really, really profound.
How long?
Ideally, you're looking at 5 minutes. Yeah. Yep. I've been doing cold showers for several years now, and it gets to where it's not a problem anymore. Except we were up at Steamboat a couple weeks ago, and their water's colder there than it is here. Oh, that's a little bit chilly. This is where we talked about thoughts. Changing your vagal tone, gratitude, is the quickest way to do this. Anybody familiar with Ben Greenfield? Ben Greenfield is a guy, he's got one of the leading podcasts as far as human performance. He's a professional Spartan racer. He used to be an Ironman athlete and this kind of stuff. He created a gratitude journal. And he talks about how his vagal tone is off the charts. Here's a guy that does all this crazy intense activity, and yet his body is just cool as a cucumber. And it comes back to gratitude. He practices every day. He gets up first thing in the morning, writes down what he's thankful for. As he's having dinner, quietly, calmly with his family, they're discussing what they're grateful for. And this mindset shift changes everything. So if we want to get rid of this, we've got to change this. Okay? And his name is Ben Greenfield. Yeah, he's a crazy guy. But he's brilliant.
We like crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy. He's crazy brilliant. Manage your state. What does that mean? That means paying attention to your physiology, paying attention to your muscle tension. You know, when I was teaching my son to drive several years ago, 10 years ago or more, we were in the parking lot at the local high school doing like 3 miles an hour, and there's no other car around. And I was holding onto the door handle, both feet pressed against the floor, clenching my teeth, and I was just, and all of a sudden I just caught myself. I'm like, what am I doing? I am like in a full run from the bear physiological state, and there was no bear. So I took a breath, stretched out my jaw, relaxed everything, and in 5 minutes I was right back there. And I started recognizing that I was in a stress habit more than I was in a stress state, but it was affecting my physiology. And that's the way most of us live, right? Because we live in this crazy, busy world. So we have to have strategies for checking our state. And I've recommended this to dozens and dozens of people, is to take an app on your phone and have it vibrate every 15, 30, 40, 50 minutes. And when it vibrates, check your state. Am I breathing? What's my jaw like? Do I have one of these things going on, right? You know, what is my state? Go to that place of just releasing all of that tension. I even got to the point where I would look around and kind of go, yeah, there's no bear here. And I would just release that tension. And then I would go to a place of gratitude. Man, what a gorgeous day. Isn't that, and I would find something to be thankful for. And when I was teaching my daughter to drive a couple years later, sitting in the same parking lot, and I was just like, yeah, my state is better. I still have to check it, because guess what tendency tends to want to do to us? You know, we never arrive. We have to continually be working on these things. But managing your state will have a huge effect on things. Okay? Because bottom line is, if we're having struggles, if we're doing the right thing, it's a hormone issue. This is how we change that. We can't change those without changing our habits. So, strategies for success, check your alignment. This is really a critical part of it. Alignment in your lifestyle, and if you're not seeing a chiropractor, I'd recommend it to check your alignment there as well. If you guys are familiar with Jack Wolfson, the paleocardiologist, right? Here's a guy that's a cardiologist. He won't accept anybody as a patient unless they're receiving chiropractic care. Why? Because if they have an alignment problem that affects this part of their spine, how well is their heart going to be able to function? He can't see the impact. So it becomes a critical part of it. Check your alignment, do your exercise, keep doing that. Ideally on an empty stomach. If we want to have the most profound hormone effects, first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. First thing in the morning is when your growth hormone is at its peak. That's the best time to get out there and do stuff, okay? Eat real food, we talked about that. Detoxify, do a 12 to 14 hour daily fast. I know people that do 18-hour daily fasts. More than 50% of your body weight in water a day. Who's not drinking water? Yeah, drink water. Water actually helps to decrease your appetite, and it increases your metabolism. Really important. Cold shower or ice bath 5 minutes a day. Who's going to take this challenge? You know,
Ice bucket challenge is enough.
here's a mindset thing too. Is that, does anybody like feeling like you just done something, you accomplished something that was kind of hard, and you just feel better after doing it? Right? You talked about going and working out this morning, and I asked how the workout was, and we kind of talked about how it's always good afterwards, right? Every workout is great afterwards. It sucks while you're in it, but so here's the deal. If we embrace the suck, we get to enjoy the benefit afterwards. And so when I'm getting up in the morning and kind of, stumbling around after I've had my workout, and I'm just knowing that I'm going to be stepping into this cold shower, it's turn off the brain, embrace the suck, and get in there. And then afterwards, and you get out. Here's the cool thing about getting out of a cold shower is the bathroom feels nice and warm afterwards.
Not cold.
Right? Yeah, it's not cold. When you're taking a hot shower, it's the opposite effect. But embrace the suck of a cold shower. You guys will notice some good benefits of that. No food within at least 2 hours, ideally 3 hours bedtime. This will really help with your metabolism as well. So those are some things to consider. Alexa wanted me to make sure to invite you guys that are interested in finding out more about your nerve system and its function to come in for an evaluation. Here's what that looks like. We basically do a complete wellness evaluation. We'll do a neurological assessment. We look at posture. We actually do a neurological balance and coordination assessment. We do a computerized nerve scan to plug into the nerves you don't even feel, those that affect your hormones, those that affect your organ systems, any x-rays that are necessary. We set up a separate time to come back after I've had a chance to process that for a complete overview of what we found and any kind of an action plan we would recommend. Okay. Anything on there that I didn't cover? Snacking 101, fast food stuff. So here's the deal with this, is that preparation makes all the difference in the world. All right? So my wife and I, having raised 3 kids, they're all now adults, and knowing that we got busy lives, we got kids that are everywhere, all over the place, Sundays was our meal prep day. And we would take and we'd figure out a strategy for shopping. We'd figure out what we wanted to do. We'd create a list, and so we had everything set up. I would take and usually grill a whole bunch of chicken, cook up a bunch of meat. She would cut up a bunch of veggies, and so we would have everything set up ready to go. And so in the morning, if the kids wanted something, they could crack a couple eggs, throw a little chicken in there, put some mushrooms and some veggies in there, sprinkle a little cheese on there, and they had themselves a really healthy omelet that quick. If we wanted a lunch, it was the same kind of thing, right? Take a bowl, throw some of the veggies, some of the greens in there, maybe some of the beef, and then some salsas and whatever we wanted. We had a real quick, easy thing that way. You've got your veggies in little containers, so you can take those and snack on the way. If you're wanting to find a workout thing, then those blender bottles with a good protein, a good super green food, and some almond milk or some coconut milk is a great way to get things quick, easy, and make it work from there. Anybody have NutriBullets or Vitamixes, that kind of stuff? What my son and I do is we actually take those boxes of all the greens and we throw them in our freezer. And then we have some like frozen berries or something. We'll take a handful of the greens, throw them into the NutriBullet, take some of the berries in there, add a little bit of water. Sometimes we'll put some protein powder or some other, some MCT oil. Anything we want to do to get it what we want it to have, blend it up, and then you're good to go. You got yourself a superfood that quick, and it's going to get your body what it needs to go. Okay.
You gotta chew it.
Chew your smoothie. That's right. But it's really preparation, right? You've probably heard it said that we don't plan to fail, we just fail to plan. And so it's recognizing that if our food is important enough to us, we'll find ways to make it happen. If you want more than that, Pinterest has a ton of stuff. There's a ton of resources out there on how to make quick, easy, healthy snacks. If you have any questions on any of that, and you come across something and say, hey, is this going to work? Shoot me an email, and we can kind of talk through some ideas on that. want to make sure that you guys have resources right. Yeah.
You had said to work out on an empty stomach, but I heard to have carbs before working out and protein after. Like,
There's a lot of different schools on it, right? So the carbs are going to give you that energy, right? The quick energy so you can do a workout. So, but guess what? If you're burning fat, you're actually going to get more of a benefit from the fat burning part of that workout. And it's interesting because a lot of elite athletes said, well, because sugar burns quicker, we need that for performance. We're seeing a lot of athletes, even CrossFit athletes, long duration, Ironman type athletes, that aren't doing the goo gel stuff anymore. They're actually taking and they're doing kind of a keto approach to things, taking fats and keeping things going that way. So if your goal is to maintain lean body mass and to get to where you're actually fat acclimated and burn fat, empty stomach is ideal. Okay. There's also that school of thought that says, hey, after your workout, you need to take some carbs so that you increase your insulin, so that you can draw in more protein and instant stuff into the cells as well. It does a little bit, but the offset of taking those extra carbs in actually defeats the purpose of what you're trying to do. Okay.
do you recommend the protein within a half hour after?
Yeah, ideally, if you're doing a really, really intense workout, you want to give your body what it needs to start repairing. So good fats and good protein is going to be a good thing right afterwards. If it's not that intense of a workout, then all of a sudden the necessity for that decreases. You just want to make sure you're getting it throughout the day. Okay? But like if you're really intense elite athlete and it's one of those where you know you're going to be hurting, the quicker you can get protein in there, the less sore you're going to be tomorrow. Yep.
Caffeine.
Caffeine, actually that's a great question too, because you were even asking about wine earlier. Wine, good or bad? Coffee, good or bad? Yes. Yes. So it comes back to this, is that imagine that you're in line at Starbucks and you've got a busy day and you're standing there, there's like 3 people before you kind of go, you're looking at your clock, you got all this stuff to go, and you're waiting for your 23 shot espresso so that you can just get into your day and go. Caffeine is horrible for you because your adrenals are already on overload and you're just taking and you're dumping stuff in there that's going to just amp you up and just take those right to complete failure. But on the other hand, you guys leave here and you walk over to proper grounds and you sit and you just kind of hanging out, talking to each other, comparing notes, sipping on your espresso or whatever. Not a macchiato that's got all this other junk in it. But if if you're drinking your coffee, your physiological state is completely different and it's going to affect you completely differently. Right? It comes back to, guess what? Our hormones make all the difference. They make all the difference in how that caffeine will affect us. So it's our state. I love coffee. But it has to be from this place instead of this place because it will destroy you. Does that make sense? Does that answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. My husband and I have this argument about why he needs espresso at night.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too is that with the genetic testing that my son and I had, it showed that we're both fat metabolizers of caffeine. And here's where genetics gets really confusing, is that when I was in college, I could drink a pot of coffee, at 10 o'clock at night while I was studying, and I'd lay down and I was just like unconscious. Now if I drink, decaf espresso at lunchtime, I'm lighting up looking at the ceiling like this. So genetically, I metabolize it fast, but for some reason it still is getting me amped up. So it's just recognizing how your body processes it and checking your state when you're consuming it. The wine, the alcohol is the same way. Right? What's the state that we're in, and really what's the desired outcome for it? It talks about wine being calming for the stomach. It can be, but it can also cause fatty liver and cirrhosis, depending upon how it's consumed. So it comes back is that the bottom line is if we don't deal with this part of our life, everything that we do, whether it's good or bad, is going to wreck us. But if we can come to a place here where we're just like, we process everything a whole lot better. And then coffee becomes really pleasurable, right? So having that coffee at dinner time or before bedtime is just like, that's soothing. That's just a relaxing thing. And it helps them sleep. Even with the caffeine, right? It just doesn't make sense because it all comes back to what your physiology is. Okay. Any other questions? Yes?
I was wondering about a vegan diet.
Uh-huh.
High interval training, because that's been a little challenging.
It's a huge challenge. And that's really where it comes down to is that you've got to work extra hard to make sure you're getting good fats as well as good proteins. I mean, you know the protein challenge, but the other part of that is even the fats, right? To get omega-3 fats that are actually going to be beneficial for your body to effectively reduce inflammation from a purely vegan diet is a huge challenge, right? You can do a ton of chia seeds and flax seeds and walnuts and all these things, and you're getting the short chain of the omega-3 fatty acid, and you get like 1 out of 17 of those converts to long chain, which you need as well. That comes from fish, comes from grass-fed beef, comes from the animal sources. So not only is it a protein challenge, it's a fat challenge.
Yeah.
And
I've since starting to work out, I've started eating like duck eggs a couple times a week,
Yeah.
and then fish like every 2 weeks.
yeah, that's bottom line. Is my recommendation is that if you're okay with that, that's where you need to go. Is try to get some of the animal protein and animal fats in there.
And also with the intermittent fasting, you recommend maybe 12 to 14 hours. Do you have an opinion on the intermittent fasting that's like every other day? A day on and
That
day
works well too. Yep.
Even with high interval training, it's good. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
My employer wanted me to ask.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where that either one of those is going to keep us fat acclimated, and that's the ultimate goal for that.
Okay.
And that when we're doing interval training, if we're fat acclimated, we can keep going.
Right.
Okay.
Do you have questions on quantity of alcohol, like, besides the state you're in? Like,
Yeah, what's interesting is that there's a ton of research on that, and the amount of coffee, the amount of alcohol, and moderation is the key. Which what the heck does that mean? It means whatever you interpret to mean. But they're saying 2 to 4 of the normal servings, right? So that's not the size of wine glass that I pour for my wife typically when she drinks. But it's taken at what you would be served at a restaurant, and so having 2 to 4 of those, and again in a relaxed state. That's where you come. And that's where, again, kind of like taking the time to eat. If we take the time to just kind of sip and do that, it goes a lot further.
you ask 2 to 4 any day you want to do it, not
Yeah.
like over a week or something.
Yeah. Yep. And I would come back to that too, is that to make sure that it's not something that you're kind of jonesing for, right? That you're kind of going, oh, I can't wait till I get that. It's just making sure that it's a peaceful thing. Yeah. Good. Well, I apologize for going longer. That's just kind of my nature on things, but I appreciate your attention. It was fun to have you guys here.